down as the foundation in CISA Domain 1. Now we are moving on to CISA Domain 2. All right. So CISA Domain 2, we start with a concept called GRC. So this is the rock bottom of all of our management, governance, risk, and everything is covered into this. GRC is a kind of a holistic concept. It's not exactly a single technology or a concept or a anything that you can think of. It is a overall perspective of how a company is run. So it is not something that we are just looking at one angle of it or aspect of it. This covers the gamut of the operations, the governance, risk function in terms of how the things are executed, how it is managed, and everything else. So GRC stands for Governance, Risk Management, and Compliance, or Risk and Compliance. So governance is basically the internal framework of the rules, policies, procedures, basically things which are for direction and control of the organization itself. So here is where you are defining the roles, responsibilities, establishing ethical practices, establishing a code of conduct, establishing contractual obligations, managerial obligations, how you are supposed to carry out an operation and to align with the strategic goal, which means first you will have a vision, you will have a mission, you will have a various other things which will drill down from there. So it will go from the top, which will be the governance, which will be, say, the board of directors or the owners. And then from there, you will have a set of people who will be doing like the audit committee, and other subcommittees will be there who will be managing things or governing sub processes. Under them, they will have various verticals, various divisions, various support divisions, like for example, audit, IT, HR, legal, and so on. So this is as far as governance is concerned. When it comes to risk is the process of identifying, assessing, and addressing potential threats, which can be in various forms. It can be financial, it can be legal, it can be security, it can be operational, it can be many things. Threats can come in many ways, right, into the organizational objectives. So whenever an organization objective is getting hampered or impacted, it is a risk. So risk is the potential or a probability of something good or bad happening, but invariably in terms of our daily lives or in terms of management, in terms of our the colloquial language in which the English is being used, the risk is associated with something adverse for the company or adverse for the organization, which will threaten an asset, and either the asset will get exploited or it will get destroyed or it will be taken over by somebody else. So this is the main thing about risk. Then we come to compliance. Compliance is again manifold. It can be from external laws, regulations, which we again touched upon yesterday and day before. So we will be talking about various industry standards. We'll be talking about government regulations, legal repercussions, industry practices which are prevalent, which are applicable for us. There may be some external agencies which are also requiring us to do some compliance in terms of reporting, in terms of understanding how we operate, whether we are in a controlled environment, and so on. It can also be internal. Internal can be policies, procedures, ethics, code of conduct within the organization, within our own domain, within our own department. The way we function as a unit, as an individual, all these things will be taken care in compliance. So GRC is a very overall kind of a concept under which we have subdomains. But as far as CISA Domain 2 is concerned, it talks about everything. Obviously, it talks about the entire GRC, but it divides it into two aspects or fundamental verticals. One is governance, other is the management. So Domain 1 Part A or Section A talks about governance. So we are going to talk about governance largely, and then we'll go into management going after that. So what are the major steps in GRC? So it always starts with assessing the current landscape of the organization in the way in which it operates, in the industry in which it operates, in the kind of regulatory environment in which it operates. It starts with our existing governance, our practices, and how it is getting aligned to. The next step is how it is getting aligned to our objectives. Our objectives should always align with GRC objectives, should always align with the organization objectives. Organization again should align with regulatory or the environment in which it operates or the industry in which it operates. Then we drill down and we establish structures and policies. Like, for example, we will have an organization structure in which there'll be a CEO, there'll be a managing director, there can be subdivisions, there can be sub-units, there'll be a CISO, there'll be a CIO, there'll be a CIA, there'll be other people who will be working, the C-suite, as we call it. So the people, CFO, all these people will be working under that domain. So for each domain, we will have a structure. For each domain, we'll have a workflow. For each domain, we'll have a policy. For each policy, we'll have a sub-policy or a procedure. How we have to operate. So a policy defines overall structure for us in what we are expected to do, what we are expected to deliver. And procedure tells us how we are supposed to do it, right? Like a step by step. Then we come to risk assessment and then controls. Anything that it's like bread and butter, right? Bread is, we cannot have butter or just bread. Both come together. Same way, risk and controls operate together. So you have risk and you have controls. So first you have to identify the risk. You have to do a risk assessment. You have to see what are the risks or which are affecting or impacting the organization. And accordingly, we have to establish whether controls are there to address that or not. So again, we spoke about in domain 1 itself, we spoke about many things in terms of risk and risk assessment. We also spoke about controls where we have preventive, detective, and corrective, which is PDC, which are the primary controls. And along with that, we also have deterrent and compensating controls, which we also touched upon. So these are the things which comes under GRC. The next will be, once you have done all of these things, we have to monitor and measure in terms of metrics, in terms of KPIs, KRIs, various other compliance, how it is getting done, whether it is getting done effectively and efficiently. And last but not the least, we will be talking about review and improvement plans, how we can improve our existing processes to do better, to improve over time, to become more efficient. So the overall structure comes from understanding this, where governance and management and our IA, how it all fits in, is coming from this model called the 3 lines model by the Institute of Internal Auditors in the US. They have come up with this structure or the framework. So this is more of a framework for enterprise governance itself. So it talks about a governing body who will be accountable to the stakeholders for the organizational oversight. And the key roles they are playing is integrity, leadership, and transparency. This is the G, okay, or the governance aspect of it. Then we have the management, which is the second line of defense. So governance is the first line of defense. Management is the second line of defense. Management includes actions to achieve organization objectives, which can be, again, multiple roles will be there: accountability, reporting, delegation, direction, resources, oversight. All of these things are drilled down from the governance aspect, and the management will do it. So they will have expertise, they will be having the support. They will be having primary and secondary kind of a management. So primary management will be on the first line. Secondary management will be on just the support divisions, which are handling that on a day-to-day basis, maybe on the operational side, maybe on the technical side, all those things. And finally, the third line of defense is the internal audit, which is the independent and objective body, which gives an assurance and advice on main matters in terms of how, whether things are in place, whether we are aligned to the organization objectives, whether we are communicating things on time, whether things are controlled, risks are mitigated, or risks are largely covered in terms of having an action plan to manage it, how it is getting managed, how risks are getting mitigated through either control or maybe the overall operating structure on the environment in which the controls are working or operating, whether it is effective and efficient. This is what a 3-line model talks about. This is a very critical topic when it comes to the exam. When we spoke about this, governance versus management is something which is really asked in the exam a lot. And to understand this easier, I just highlighted the key words which are there. What governance is all about, or the governing bodies are all about, which mainly comprises of board, steering committee. It can be IT steering committee, it can be operational steering committee, it can be multiple steering committees. Then the senior management, okay, the C-suite, most likely. And the key words which are there for the governance, which identify whether it is governance or management, is that the governance always talks about evaluation, direction, monitor, approving strategies, policies, ensuring value, risk optimization, setting the tone, accountability, and so on. These are the keywords when it comes to identifying governance. When it comes to identifying the management, which will comprise of the managers, the CIO, CISO, and so on, we speak about the words which are like planning, building, running, monitoring. So more like verbs, right? When it comes to governance, we are talking more like nouns. We are establishing, we are certain things, we are setting a tone. Here we are actually doing the work. So we'll be doing implementation of the strategy and the procedures. We'll be doing executive of daily operations. We will be following the direction given by the governance or the governing body. So this is, as far as governance and management is concerned, very important topic for the exam, as well as understanding a concept as such. All right, we'll move on to the next. Now, how or what we do when we speak about auditing IT governance. So there are four major aspects when it comes to learning or auditing an IT governance. We always start with learning the organization. In any topic, in any subject, in the CISA exam, you will always come across that we understand the business, we understand the objectives, we understand what the company wants to do. So always learning the organization will be the first step. Okay. We'll starting with the mission statement, then we derive from the vision statement, then we derive what are the organizational strategies, what are the objectives, what we want to achieve in 5 years, what we achieve in 1 year, what we want to achieve in 6 months, let's say, and we break it down. Then we derive on something called IT strategic plan. So anything that is there, strategy is generally something which happens over 3 to 5 years. Okay, plan is something which happens over 1 to 3 years, sometimes less than that. But management plan is something which happens in a short span of time. A strategy which is happening in a long form of or a span of time. So you have to see what they are going to do or how they are going to go about as a company in the next 3 to 5 years. What is the vision, and what are the objectives to achieve that? Are they in track? So these are the things which we will look at from a strategy point of view. Then we will look at from an organization chart, how it is the structure of the organization, how it is done, who is reporting to whom, what is the hierarchy, what is the workflow, who is authorizing what, who is approving what, all these things we'll be looking at. And finally, we'll be drilling down to policies and procedures, which is the last leg of doing an IT governance audit. So this is just a summary or a cheat sheet for identifying again, whether it is governance or management. The keywords again I am highlighting as a recap, just to make sure that we are aware of this and we are clear about this, because this will be the stone which will go on throughout the CISA domain too. So governance always talks about direction, strategy, policies, alignment, oversight, accountability, value delivery, and so on. Management talks about implementing governance action, which we already have spoken about. I'm just summarizing it here. Now, under the governance, okay, we have various types of bodies. Okay, we start with the board. Board will be the highest body or the highest authority in the governance structure. So the board usually approves IT strategy, policies, it governs the risk, monitors the overall IT performance, and so on. Under the board, we will have IT steering committee and action committees, various other action committees. So they will be again aligning with the business. They will be prioritizing the projects. They will be reviewing budgets. They will be the approval of the budget will be by the board, but they will be preparing the budget. They will be presenting the budget to the board and then to get their approval. And they will also be looking at the performance dashboards. IT steering committee generally does the monitoring of the implementation of the IT strategy, which is what I have given in the just below that. So if the question is looking at the monitoring of the implementation of IT strategy, it will be the IT steering committee and not the board. Monitoring will be done by the steering committee, and the governance or the review will be done, or the approval or the other things will be done. Oversight will be done by the board. Then we will have CIO, CISO, and people. CIO is responsible for implementing the strategy. They will report the performance to the board or the audit steering committees, whichever is depending on the company. And CISO for the end is responsible for the security